Well, for the next guest speaker, don't need presentation, it's going to be myself. So, hi, my name is Ismael. I work for Yodo1 Games as an IP licensing BD manager. And today I'm here to talk to you about how to effectively integrate an IP or brand to your game. First of all, we have to ask the big question. Why IP and brand collaborations right now? Well, as you've seen in the market these past years, especially this last year, releasing a new title is getting more complicated. We're relying more on liveops and existing games, and when it comes to that, we need to be creative. We cannot be always releasing the same type of event. We need to bring new things out of the box. And what's best than bringing IP from big brands or from big Hollywood titles, movies, etc., right? Right now also, as you have seen with many of the past collaborations, especially last year with Barbie movie, right? The line between movies, TV shows, brands, entertainment, and gaming, it's super thin right now. So it's the perfect moment to jump into the trend of bringing IPs to your game. But let's see how liveops in the gaming industry is right now. According to the Gaming Griffin report that we got a month ago or a few weeks ago, we've seen that 90% of the studios right now are working on or intending to release a game based on live services, right? 66% and over 65% think that live-ops services are necessary to the games and to the future in the industry, right? So this leads us to bringing licensing in games. Probably the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Hollywood IPs or other IPs into games, it's always going to be Fortnite, right? They do it in a way that is pretty straightforward. They bring all type of IPs, but it's also a good way to promote the release of a movie for the licensors or the release of new content. As we have seen and I mentioned before with Barbie last year, that movie was everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't like the movie. If you're a gamer, you're going to see it. And it works, because licensors and brands wants to do it more and more and more. So this is something that we can see here, the trends. Don't get scary. I have to show the bad numbers as well, because not everything it's beautiful, right? This has been the trends in the past years from a report from Newzoo. Just to don't get you scared, from 2023 is H1, and only with Barbie probably that goes up at 30 or 40 more events, and that's in H2. And the reason why it dropped, it was because NFTs, Web3 gaming, all the brands, yeah, we want to get into the new technology, we want to invest money. And then what happened? Back to reality. But the reality is that brands and IPs are getting more curious, and it's getting more normalized to get into game for bringing new audiences. You can see that here, the most common types, obviously it's easy. If you want to do a collaboration with IP, go for a gaming IP, right? You know the audience of the game, you know your audience, you know if it's gonna feed or if it's not gonna feed right away. But there's something that caught my attention, and I'm here to preach about it. It's about anime. And I don't know if you're familiar with anime. I'm a nerd. And if you're not, you're going to listen to me for 5 good minutes to talk about it. But I want to explain how anime, manga, and comics are become so mainstream, and it's so good for making in-game collaborations. So according to a report from Crunchyroll, I think it was like a couple years ago, they found out that 90% of the people who watch anime are gamers as well. So yeah, it's a pretty easy strategy to go for an anime IP. I remember when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, whatever, you will watch anime, you will be a nerd. You will only know Dragon Ball and a few more. Right now, it's bigger than that. Platforms like Crunchyroll, even Netflix, Disney Plus, now they signed Tokyo Revengers and a few more. Thanks to that, the anime is getting more mainstream. And it's not only a thing of Japan anymore. It's also, especially in the US. So, for example, the past years, we've seen collaborations with Dragon Ball, One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, Kimetsu no Yaiba, etc. Probably if you're not familiar, You don't know what I'm talking about, but they're popular, and so they're doing quite well. And that's why it's a new trend that we're gonna see more, because this was a Japanese thing a few years ago, but now it's not. Now we're gonna still see it more, to span into new markets, to bring it into games. And believe me, many times the integration, it feels super natural, and you already have engaged the audience. And yeah, anime fans, we're loyal. So if we like your game because you brought something, we're gonna stay there forever. So the main takeaways, as I said before, anime is more mainstream. I'm gonna stop about that, okay? Movies and TV shows are using gaming as a new marketing platform, right? As I say, for new movies, for new content, it's something that they want to use to bring to other audiences. Years ago, you will have commercials. I don't know who from Gen Z or millennials watch TV anymore. I guess not many people. So they have to find new ways to promote the new content, right? Whether it's in a digital way or whether it's in a physical way, but gaming is the best way to get to those audience. And well, yeah, about the bad news, we saw the trend going down. Of course, don't be scared. It's because of Web3 gaming and all that stuff. We're in a good place and it's moving forward. And yeah, this is here to stay. This is just growing and growing and growing. We've seen in the news more and more collaborations, high deals like the one from Epic Games with Disney, and big things are coming for the gaming industry when it comes to the entertainment industry as well, right? So what do you expect? What do we expect to achieve? What are the goals that we want to do when it comes to IP licensing, right? There are 3 easy goals. The first one, everyone thinks, okay, I'm gonna bring a new IP. I'm gonna bring a ton of new players because of the IP, right? It's gonna bring me organic players from the IP. It's gonna make a lot of noise. And of course, it's more likely your game get featured on the store. But this is something that it's a right to focus on it, but you don't have to get crazy about it, right? Because there is also something important. It's not only about the new players, but it's also about your existing players. And here I come. It's fun, it's beautiful to get a ton of downloads and to see a lot of new players, but if they don't stay, why do you want them? It makes no sense, right? You want them to stay, you want to engage your new players. So this is a great opportunity to give something fresh to your players, to make them feel part of this type of collaborations. Talk to them in the community, let them know what are your plans. Of course, don't hint anything, but let them know what are the top IPs they like, the top movies. Do something that they participate as well. And why not? This is also a good opportunity to make some of your existing players first-time players. Because let's say I'm a huge fan of, I don't know, Godzilla, and I see Godzilla in a game that I'm playing a lot. And never in my life I would thought I would buy something in a game, right? But then it's like, okay, it's a skin. It's going to be limited. They're bringing it here. I like it. And it's not always about paying an in-app purchase, but also we will see later, but you can find many creative ways of give something to your existing players. And then the last one, it's a marketing tool. I want to be pretty clear here with the misconception or the assumption that bringing an IP to your game and using it in your UA creatives is going to lower down your CPIs. It's not always that beautiful. It varies a lot. It's case by case. We've seen even sometimes going a bit up, but take into consideration that it's also about how valuable is that player. We don't want to bring a lot of players that are going to last just a few days. We want players that are going to be here forever and for future collaborations, right? So you can use it you can use some IP elements in your user acquisition campaigns, but don't get crazy about the results. Just leverage on how you usually do the user acquisition campaigns and how can you bring with the IP. And then another way, sometimes on licensors, yeah, they like to support you in a marketing way, right? They retweet, they post on social media, they're quite active. It depends on the licensor, to be honest, and how you negotiate it in the contract, but this is something that they can help you as well. And then, of course, you can create new ways to monetize, to attract new players, etc. So keep in mind, first of all, bring new players, engage your existing players, and use the IP as a marketing tool. And then the big question, what do? I want an IP for my game. I need to pick an IP for my game. Probably you will say, oh, I want the most popular IP because it's going to work. No, it's not going to work for your game. It doesn't match some requirements, right? You might think, OK, now it's super popular. I don't know why it's super popular now, guys. What do you say? Tell me one IP. Don't be shy. I have to say as well? OK, so I'm going to go again from the anime side. For example, with the new Dune movie, right? We've seen they doing a collaboration with World Tanks. That's a perfect fit. But you cannot bring that to Candy Crush or to a game where it's a puzzle game where you have your audience is mostly females, plus 30 years old, and they focus on other things, right? And they have different tastes. You have to leverage. That's why it's really important to take into consideration also the game genre. Is the game genre a good fit for your IP, for the IP? What are we trying to achieve here? Like, understand how the core of your game and how the mechanics can play with the IP. Don't force it. Sometimes you will see forced integrations. I will get into more detail later. But just be smart. There are many types of integrations. You can do something more cosmetic, right? Just bring some elements from the IP. No need to monetize it. Do it for free. You can do something more based on skin and in-app purchases. Or you can just put a whole story where you can monetize it, create a new narrative, engage your players. But it depends on the type of game that you have. And of course, as we will see later, the type of audience, right? So here you have a few examples. For example, the collaboration with Barbie on Candy Crush, it was quite simple and straightforward. You will have the letter B or something like that, and you will get a max of points from the collaboration, and then you will get rewards. That's pretty cosmetic, right? It's a good way to promote the movie. It's a good way to bring new players, but it's not super complicated. Then we get into a skins base, right? This I put the sample of PUBG, but it's also the same for Fall Guys or Fortnite, right? Super straightforward. And Fall Guys, you want to get something, you go, you have your currency, you pay it, that's it. And then, for example, a story-driven Last Fortress and The Voice, which they actually made a whole new story about how the IP came into the war. And then, of course, inside of that, they did several ways of monetization from in-app purchases and also daily login, etc. That it was quite successful, to be honest. I can tell you that one was really good. Then the theme and the universe. This is something related with what I was talking before. Is the theme and the universe related? Like, it makes sense to bring X IP to your game? The first thing that comes to your mind is like, man, Fortnite brings all type of IPs to the games. How do they do it? Right, they have a system in place. If you want to go that way, make sure you have a really simple and straightforward system in place to bring all the IPs to your games. Otherwise, you're gonna confuse the people. Like if, for example, I'm gonna go again with Godzilla. You bring Godzilla to a family merge game, and it's like a lifestyle game, and you all of a sudden bring the big guy. It's not gonna make any sense, right? So take into consideration that even if the fans of the IP or your players are fans of the IP, maybe for some of them might be not too logical. It's nice to be out of the box, but come with a plan. Don't rush. Don't always pick the best IP. The best IP outside might not be the best IP for your game. You need to think about it, and you need to go through it, do research, get your data, and get the best ones. So, for example, here, Last Zelda, The Walking Dead, it makes sense. It's zombie and zombie, right? It's not a brainer. It feels like it's another episode of the game or another part of the TV show, right? So it's good. Epic 7 with ReZero is fantasy. We know it's gonna, it's gonna be a perfect match to create a story, to connect both universes, and to make it smooth for the player. And then we got King of Fighters and Street Fighter. Okay, they're both gaming IPs, probably the same type of audience. That was a perfect one. And we know it's going to work, but my point is that you don't even feel sometimes that it's going a collaboration because it feels so natural that at the same time you can bring new fans from the IP and your players will be like, oh, this is amazing. Because probably they will like the type. If you're playing zombie games, sometimes it doesn't happen, right? But you must be a little bit of a fan of a zombie TV shows, right, or movies. So this is what I meant with the theme and the universe. But lastly, and more important, your demographic fit. As I said before, it's nice to bring new players, but it's more important to treat the current players well. Please, if it's needed, ask your player, understand your players, analyze the data that you have. Bring something that your players are gonna enjoy and are gonna feel like, okay, I was part of this. I want to be into the next one because this is limited and it feels exclusive, right? It feels like, okay, if I miss the event this time, who knows when it's going to come back, if it's going to come back, right? So make sure you understand that. But also how big, not only your demographics, but the demographics of the IP. What are the key demographics of the IP? How big is the audience? How can attract new players to the games? How are you gonna monetize those players? So make sure the demographics is something you take into consideration and you study before jumping into, okay, I want this IP or I want the other. It's about analyzing. It's a lot about data. The fun thing here is I find really interesting not only get data from video games, but also get data from TV shows, movies, animes, and other stuff, and brands. So just find the right fit for your audience, and it will feel natural, and it will be, trust me, it will work pretty well. I will show you later a case that worked perfectly fine, and it was a perfect match. So, for example, here, Dave the Diver did a collaboration with Dreads. So we knew that one was going to work. Similar game, it's an indie game, similar audience. The demographics are perfect. Then you got Dead by Daylight with Resident Evil. Again, it's an horror audience. They're gonna love it. It's the same type of demographics. It's well studied when you see this type of collaborations because you know they've done research on the audience from the game and from the IP. And then I didn't know how to say this, Planes audience, right? It's whatever, it doesn't sound too good, but Top Gun and Flight Simulator was also a really, really good integration. And you see that probably the one who saw Top Gun, and they like planes as well. It sounds dumb sometimes, but it's true. It's something that it feels like it's made for the game. So that's why I want to show you some monetization strategy and injection points right here. Like, for example, the tips I want to give you, really important. I will give you the tips, and then I will show you some examples really quickly. The first one is you have to identify the most desired item in your game. What's the item or what is the in-app purchase that is more desirable for players and they spend the more money on? Make sure it's appealing to all the type of players. Of course, you can create some bundles that are more for the whales, but make it accessible to everyone. Give them the opportunity to try it. And as I said before, some of the players might be the first time purchasing, right? So we want to make sure we keep them. So another point is identify also the most popular character of the IP. So for the fans who are coming from the IP, we know what we want to sell, how we want to sell it, or what we want to give, right? If the TV show or the movie has different characters, go through pools, study everything, and the most popular ones are the ones that you want to integrate in your game and monetize. So, of course, offer something for free. Don't be cheap, please, for all the players who in the past we haven't paid any money, but now we do. Offer items related with the IP for free. They can feel like, okay, they treat us well. Even though I'm not paying, maybe I can get a skin if I come every day. And yeah, make it easy to access. Some of the collaborations you have to reach level 120, or there's the way you start with the collaboration is super hidden. Make it straightforward. Make it easy to access. Make it easy for everyone. And don't make it everything about in-app purchases. Don't make them feel like, oh, you bring the IP because you want to get my money, and it's everything in-app purchases. So here I will give you some examples pretty quick. This is a daily login, which is really good to engage players who don't pay money. This was Knife Outs with One Piece. And if you will log in the last day, you will get Utah, which is a skin from the movie. And yeah, always offer something pretty attractive the last day. Then you can combine, another example of monetization, you can combine it with a battle pass. This is a little bit risky, right? Because it's like, okay, you already have the players who are paying for the battle pass. They're going to still paying anyway, right? So you're not going to be able to get any extra income from the in-app purchase itself. But at the same time, if you have a system in place and you want to take the risk and you got good terms in the deals, it's something really good to attract new players to pay the battle pass for the first time. And also, you can, as always, you can show what they're getting for free and what they're getting with, in this case, the Mr. Beat battle pass. So it's more like, oh, you want it, right? The event currency, this is one, it's really good, but I'm not a fan because some players have already the currency in the game and they then see a new event and then see a new currency and it feels like, oh, this is a little bit of a ripoff, but it works. Cookie Run Kingdom has like 2,000 currencies, so they've been doing it great and it's not a surprise if they see another one. But if you only have one currency, I wouldn't recommend this one. And then the classic skin, as I said before, you go, you pay. You can pay straight with the currency of the game, or you can pay straight with your currency. It's really nice, and it works really well when you just pay with the currency of the game, because you might have had extra currency in the game that you want to invest into that item, and it's really good for players to say, oh, I don't have to pay now extra money because I have these tokens, these gems, or whatever for a long time. And then, pretty quick, I want to show you a case where I personally work with. And this integration was Shovel Knight with Ados Layer, and it had most, if not all, of the elements I mentioned before. It was an indie game with an idle type of game, pixel art. The audience was super similar. They built a story around, so it was a story-driven, not too crazy, not super hard to understand. It was just like a glitch in the game. You will just hit that box, and you will get into the universe, and then it will form a story around. But as you can see, you cannot tell if they're in Shovel Knight or in another game. It feels supernatural by the graphics, by the design, but how the character of the game interacts with the IP. So pretty much, the other combination was just a skin, something simple but straightforward. This game doesn't have a lot of in-app purchases, just sometimes skins and gems. But this is what I mentioned before. Players could purchase the new skin with the gems they already had in the game. And this gave really good results. Like doubling and having I think it was like something crazy, around 100% increase average revenue per daily active user. This one were insanely good. Like, I'm really proud of this one, and that's why I wanted to break it down. So then you got the NPCs, right? You got the final boss with a fight with a Spectre Knight, and of course you can skip it if you're too bad, but obviously you have to complete it. You want to finish everything. And here you can see other content-related items. So there was a bonus stage, there was some items that you could be unlocking, and as I said before, it has all the elements. It's a perfect fit, the monetization is done really well, and it's not only cosmetic, it has a story, it has some elements, some new games, and of course, sound effects and everything. This is something that we can get another day into it, because licensing the music and everything else sometimes is a little bit complicated. Not in this case, thank God. But yeah, that was amazing, and I wanted to break it down with you guys so you can see what a good collaboration looks like. And thank you for your time. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn, to chat with me, grab a beer tonight. I'm down for beers, so thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you. I'm the moderator here as well, so.
So the question is, how does this integration or collaboration work from the point of both IP holder and game developer? Does it, like, a proposition comes from game developer towards IP holder or vice versa? So how do they collaborate in that sense?
Right. I actually have another presentation. I can send it to you later. And everything starts usually might start both ways. First one is the studio showing interest in bringing an IP, or the second one, if your game is too big, the IP holder or the brand can come to you and offer you a minimum guarantee revenue share or flat fee, right? If you're the studio and you're interested into an IP, take into consideration that you're gonna have to create a proposal. In that proposal, you need to explain a little bit more about your studio, your game, the collaboration terms, how you're going to integrate the IP into the game, what is going to be the marketing budget, and another few things. And then once you have the proposal, you pitch it to the licensor. Once you pitch it to the licensor, if they approve it, we go to contract. Once we go to contract, we get into approval process. So a project manager from the licensor or from the IP will be directly assigned to that project and will be working with you guys to make batch of approvals. This is something that you will also negotiate in the contract. Let's say every 5 or 10 days, you have to send X assets, and you receive feedback. And that's the way how you will work together. But I can send you the other presentation, which is more like the one-on-one basics for IP licensing, and show you all the steps.
Thanks. And just a second question coming from the first one. From your experience, how much time does this whole process may take?
The process, that's a really good question. I mean, if you're going to talk with a Japanese IP holder, please make a year. Like, Japanese IP holders are really slow, but some of them are getting faster. So let's say an average from intention to signing the contract, let's make an average of 4 to 6 months. It depends if you have help. For example, we help with that, and we've seen cases where it's 3 months, 2 months. And then on top of that, you have to put the production, and you have to make sure you have 1 month in advance of marketing, and then the event itself. But yeah, take at least half a year, a little bit more, half a year to 1 year average in total. And if it's Japanese, the approval is a little bit slower, and the negotiation as well, but it's worth it. So that might be 1 year, 1 year and a half.
Okay, great, thanks.
No problem, thank you. Oh, BJ.
Thank you, Ismael, for the great presentation.
Thank you,
So
Vijay.
I think it's just a follow-up to the previous questions. How do you calculate the value? Because at the end of the day, I mean, IP costs money and time, right?
Right.
And AAA IPs, they cost a lot of money and a lot of time, because obviously you have to go through all these, approval processes. How do you calculate the value? I mean, you said like the CPI level sometimes can go up as well, right?
Sometimes
So
they
just
do.
as like a basic sort of the exercise to calculate the value of the IP.
That's a really good question. We actually, for example, we've seen an average of increase of a 20% in in-app purchases and a 20 to 30% in increase in downloads. But the way you calculate, you have to make sure you get a good forecast and you add a next value to that forecast of the IP. This is something, it's like in maths when you use the E to calculate the error, right? This is something that you need to make sure you, in one side, you put the investment, how much time and how many resources you're gonna relocate to the collaboration, how much you have to pay for the NG or for the flat fee. And then on the other side, you calculate that with the forecast of bringing new elements. How are you gonna monetize it? What's the spike you expect from the IP? And of course, how many organic or new users you're gonna get. The problem with this, and I've seen it a lot, is some metrics you cannot calculate it right after 1 month. Because some players, you bring new players that are gonna stay maybe there forever or for 1 good year, and you cannot calculate how much money those players brought to your game. So my recommendation is always put a 0.2, 0.3 extra, and then calculate if that's worth it based on your investment, right? If you're making 10 millions and you have to pay a 500K minimum guarantee or flat fee, and you know you're gonna get an extra 0.2, 0.3, probably it's worth it. But if you're on a low budget, at least you want to bring something to engage your players. You want to make sure, and you want to understand that maybe you might lose money. But that's something that you need to planify as when you release a new liveops. Just the IP brings that 0.2, 0.3 extra. Sometimes it's more, like in this case was double and triple in most of the metrics. But it's also like we don't have a right average that I can tell you, okay, 100% is going to be that. So to play safe, I will do 0.2, 0.3.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, guys.